Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another Hot Toys Star Wars The Bad Batch 1/6 scale figure unboxing and review. Today, we're taking a look at the final member from Clone Force 99, Tech. Now, I got mine at a discount from Pop Collectibles. As always, do your own research, make sure you're comfortable before buying. I've popped a link to their site in the description, along with the discount code Justin's Collection, for 5% off your order if you do decide to buy from them. While you're down there, why not hit that subscribe, bell notification icon, and join button, so you're notified as soon as a brand new Hot Toys Star Wars figure review goes live on the channel. As for the box art, nothing special really, it's the usual Star Wars fare. We've got an image of Tech up front wearing his bucket, this is the actual figure by the way, a metallic foil Star Wars logo below that, then underneath it a glossy wraparound banner done in the Bad Batch color scheme, this salmon pink with the red accents. They've used this color combination for all of the banners on the Bad Batch figures so far. Then we've got another image of Tech, this time not wearing his bucket, off to the right-hand side. On the side of the box, some more figure photography, Tech without his helmet and without his goggles, so 3 different modes for him. The banner is done in high gloss, so it does stand out against the satin finish for the rest of the artwork. Maybe I shouldn't have said artwork, because there's not much of it. Around the back, warnings, legal information, and Hot Toy store locations. There's not much of it on the outside of the box, I should have said. On the inside, well, that's a different story. See? Artwork on the slipcover. This is much more exciting compared to what was on the outside of the box. Up front, an image of Tech, another one of him in the background, then Hunter and Wrecker behind everything else. Down below, Star Wars, and I love this Clone Force 99 in the top right-hand corner. I can't believe they've actually completed a team. It doesn't happen very often, but it's happened today with Tech. First in-hand impressions for him. So far so good, but I'm noticing some changes with the head sculpt, even compared to the artwork on the box itself as his DC-17 pistol goes flying. What we're going to do now is get all of his accessories laid out in the light box and take a closer look at everything he comes with. Starting off with the display base first. It's the same setup as all of the other Bad Batch members. Star Wars and Tech around the front on the etched nameplate. Up top, it currently says the Bad Batch. We've got an image of Tech's helmet. This is textured and grippy, but you can remove that if you don't want it there. Or, if you peel off the backing, this is a massive sticker so you can stick it down permanently. I prefer the base underneath that sticker plate because this just looks more realistic. It's less artwork focused, I suppose. It's cast in green tinted gunmetal plastic, which I don't think we've seen before, and there's some red shading on the edges of the tiles. I could be misremembering if we have seen this particular color scheme for a Star Wars base previously. Let me know. Up top, an adjustable wide scoop crotch grabber. I don't count this as an accessory, this is just part of his outfit. It's his backpack. It's heavily weathered, we've got the antennas up top you have to attach out of the box. They are keyed, so they only go in one way, you'll see what I mean. It doesn't open. Unlike some of the other Bad Batch members' backpacks, they did. With this one, it's hollow, but you just can't get in there, and that means you can't install any of his tech, see what I did there, inside the backpack for safekeeping. I'm so sorry, I am a dad now, so I have an excuse for my dad jokes. He comes with his helmet, the visor is adjustable, you can bring it down, and it's padded on the inside strategically in the places where his head sculpt would make contact with the base plastic for the helmet if it wasn't padded. The goggles and the helmet we'll try on him a little bit later. Droid poppers, they're getting their money's worth out of these molds. We get the full one and the half one. With this, I just like to pop them on the bases to make it look like they've been planted there as some additional set dressing. He's got 2 DC-17 blaster pistols, a lot of silver scratching on the top of them, but only one holster, and it's not installed on him out of the box. You have to do that yourself. because it's optional. You don't have to use this holster if you don't want to. You'll see what I mean when we get tech out here. You can install all of these little tools on his outfit, and this one has a real metal tip on the end. The paint is good for every single one of them. I reckon this might be my favorite of the tools with the serrated clamping edge on the inside of these pincers. This is one chonky little data pad, and it's so tactile in the way it's been sculpted and painted. We've got this ridged knob on the side, the massive buttons, the hoses and cables, this ridged red button at the bottom, this looks like it can turn. Nothing moves on this, but it is well painted. And there's a real metal D-ring around the back. This is my favorite of the accessories, hands down, no question. They were this close to giving us pairs for all of the hands. The only one that we don't get two of is the pointing finger hand. The glove portion has some wrinkling sculpted in, it's painted in matte black, whereas the armor plating has this vibrant red stripe over the top, and it's an asymmetrical design from left to right. See? This one's got this cog with the blue in the middle, then the black wash around it. That just helps that blue stand out. These are gripping hands, quite pliable and flexible, so popping the grip open to install something in there, going to be very easy. The same thing cannot be said with the trigger finger hands. These fingers just do not want to budge, and the grips for the DC-17s are extremely chonky. I would suggest heating up the hands first. That may make your life a little bit easier if you're trying to get him to hold onto the blasters. Then pre-installed on him, right out of the box, 2 open palm hands. What we're going to do now is get Tech himself out here. Standing straight up and down in the light box, I'm not going to say my usual spiel because he's covered in accessories. The backpack, the tools, his helmet, the goggles, I've put everything on him just to complete the look. Tech isn't my favorite character in the show, but this figure stands a chance of being my favorite release from Hot Toys based on the show. His proportions look really good, very realistic, the armor is well painted, and it's almost all entirely new sculpt work, which is just something that we don't see very often for Clone Troopers. That's the appeal for Clone Force 99 for the Bad Batch. Having clones that have bespoke armor and special color schemes and different accessories and sick looking helmets, that's what these pieces are all about. Up close and personal, kicking things off with Tech's unhelmeted head sculpt. We'll install the goggles, then the helmet in just a second, but I wanted to start off here because this is how you get him right out of the box. I like it, but I don't love it. They've made quite a few changes compared to the original prototype. I alluded to that in the unboxing segment. The biggest of which is his hair is completely the wrong color. In the show, it's more of a light sandy color versus this very dark brown. Some folks online actually said that this was giving them Jason Statham vibes, and from certain angles, I can absolutely see Statham in this sculpt. The 5 o'clock shadow looks good, the eyes are nice and realistic, there's a dewy look to the skin with a subtle sheen, skin texture, wrinkling, it's all well executed. But I just don't like the overall look of the head sculpt, and that might just be me personally. He also doesn't have a skin tone neck, which is very strange. Most clone troopers that come with unhelmeted head sculpts have skin tone necks underneath their ribbed fabric bodysuits. You can either roll up or down the fabric for the neck cover, depending on how you want to have the figures displayed. Sculpt-wise, the hair looks good. It's their own interpretation of Tech's hairstyle in the show, the way they've sculpted it to look like it's combed back over his head. I've got no complaints with that. But it's so dark, especially around the back, and there's a big, ugly, visible mold line over the top of his head. We've seen them do so much better than that, even with figures that have bald heads. I'm not sure why that mold line is as visible as it is. The only other complaint I have with this sculpt, then we'll move on, I promise, is he should have had moving eyes. I know he was announced during that awkward period of time when they hadn't quite decided if every figure was going to get that feature or not, he should have had them. Because helmet on or off, goggles on or off, his eyes are always visible. And being able to move them round to sell a dynamic pose, this sculpt would have been so much more expressive if it had had that feature. We'll get to the helmet and the goggles after we've looked at the rest of the outfit. His backpack is removable, it's attached via magnets, and there's a foam pad around the back to protect this armor plating. The reason why you'd want to remove it potentially is, number one, it's heavy, so it pulls him backwards if you're not using a stand. It may imbalance him when you're trying to pose him. Number two, it's quite tall thanks to the antennas. And number three, it adds a lot of depth to this piece. If you're struggling with real estate in the collection like I am, you can always just ditch it, and there's still plenty of stuff to look at around the back if you've got this guy posed so that you can see this armor plating. Let's just pop his backpack back on for the rest of this. His shoulder pads are attached with elastic, you can move them around. I like to have them sitting up high so that they cover the gap between his armor and the top of the shoulder pads. They're chunky and geometric. In fact, most of Tech's armor, like his gauntlets, for example, are chunky and geometric too. This is a lot of new sculpt work, and maybe that's why Tech took the longest to be released. As for paint, he's got this chalky, dusty look to him for the armor. Then for the leather sections, the belt, all of these pouches, sculpted plastic. These, sculpted too. The straps on his chest armor, sculpted. These straps, we'll get back to them in just a second. His shirt underneath the armor is smooth, not ribbed, so even this is new. But then up top for this undershirt, that is ribbed, so this is just a regular old clone bodysuit. And that means that you can leave his elbows bent for a long period of time. You don't have to worry about creasing or cracking or damage. These pouches can't open, neither can the belt ones. But this panel on his gauntlet for the right side can open. There's some weathering on the hinges and even a little bit of weathering on the underside of the lid. That is a nice touch. Coming down to his legs, this is so frustrating. The crotch armor does not want to sit flat, and I've got no idea why. I've tried to adjust it. I've been trying, but it won't sit horizontally. Maybe I'll have to take something off and try and adjust it after the video is done. So these straps, they look like pleather. I'm pleased to report that I don't think they are. I smelled them, and they smell like genuine leather to me. I believe these straps are the real deal. This is actual leather, which is a good thing because that means they're going to stand the test of time. They shouldn't flake and crack and degrade on you. These little tools are removable, and the way you install them is really clever actually. You literally just remove the top piece. Then you can plug the bottom on, sandwich the top and bottom in between these straps, and now they're locked in place securely. You do that for every single one of them. Or, for this side, if you decide you don't want tools there but a holster instead, you can just pop that on there, but you do have to remove the tools first. Otherwise, there's not enough clearance. You can see where the tools would collide with the holster. This is sculpted plastic, and now that it's been installed, it almost looks like this strap is connected to it. It isn't, but it's the illusion of being connected. Once you install the blaster inside the holster, it's foam padded in there, so it slides in place and it doesn't rattle around. I thought it would because this is a relatively cheap feeling hollow plastic. You can also see the underside of the barrel poking out from the bottom of the holster. But no, it's in there and it ain't going nowhere, even if you tip this guy upside down. He's got a lot of padding underneath this smooth fabric for his pants, just to bulk him out and make him look more muscular. His knee pads are free floating, you can adjust them. The same thing with the boot guards, more asymmetry with different pouches on one side compared to the other. This stuff is not removable, by the way. Then a split cut boot design for the ankles. The way the base of this shin armor cups the top of the shoe, it's not great ergonomically speaking, and they could have adjusted this. This is their own take on a realistic look for tech anyway, so they could have modified this for a little bit more range of motion. As it stands, the feet are restricted. You'll see when we get to the articulation segment what I'm talking about. On the underside, some fully sculpted and painted tread with some weathering over the top. The goggles I can install on camera no problem, but the helmet? Absolutely not. That's something that requires a lot of finesse so that you don't scratch up the paint applications on his head sculpt. I like the goggles look, but I reckon I'm going to rock him with the helmet 100% of the time because you already know I've got complaints about this head sculpt anyway. The lenses are foggy. They're still clear enough so that you can see his eyes underneath them, but the fogginess and the thickness and the roundness of the lenses, they magnify his eyes on the underside, and I'm not sure how I feel about that. This is more like it. Tech has such an interesting looking bucket. The design for it is unique to say the least. We've got the antennas up top, they're made of die-cast metal. The visor, which you can bring down with this grid pattern sculpted into it, also cast in translucent yellow plastic, but it's clearer than the lenses on his goggles, so that's a plus. We've got the skull and the lightning bolts on either side of it. It's weathered, it's dusty, it's chalky looking, and the red stripe continues over the top of the helmet all the way down onto his chest armor. Look at those paint apps. Even on the back of the helmet, there's multiple layers of paint, and you can feel it on the surface. When you run your finger over the top of the sculpted plastic, you feel the grit of that paint. It comes across as though these are genuinely aged, worn, and weathered. There's one more thing that I want to try out, and that's the helmet on look, but minus the goggles. Oh no, I don't like this at all. Seeing how cavernous the helmet is on the inside and the shadow being cast over his head sculpt, it looks like there's a teeny tiny little face inside a massive helmet. With the visor down, it's less egregious, but with it up, that just isn't displayable in my opinion. But now you've seen it, if you're curious what it looks like. I wasn't able to install the helmet on camera, but I can sure as shit try and remove it. Step 1 is to pry off these earpieces by wedging your thumb underneath them around the front as the backpack is getting in our way. Do that for both sides. Oh, and while we're here, if you want to take off this visor, that is something that's doable, but now the helmet looks very strange without that piece over the top. Speaking of over the top, you remove this, then you can take the front piece off, and now we've got him without his helmet on. For a quick side-by-side comparison, when they were announcing these, it was touch and go for a moment there. I thought that Tech and Rekka were never going to happen. But they did happen. This is not another incomplete Hot Toys team like the Team Suit figures from Endgame or the Guardians from Volume 3. They did it. They delivered the goods, and every single one of these pieces is outstanding in its own right. They might not be perfect. They might be too realistic for your tastes. They're not just ripped straight out of the animation, they're stylized. But I'm here for them. I'm not a huge Bad Batch fan, but I am a fan of unique looking clone troopers, and that's what these pieces are. They are going to stand out. The dark grey look for the armor, the pops of red, Tech with his lighter grey armor. There's something to look at on all of these figures. They're going to grab your attention, and once you spot the little markings and battle damage and the differences in the armor, they're going to hold your attention, and that's what it's all about. These figures, they're showstoppers once you have the team fully assembled. Going over articulation, no bucket, no goggles. I didn't want to chance it by moving the head sculpt round with that stuff on top of it, because very likely, seeing as though they sit close to the sculpt, in fact the goggles touch it, you are going to scuff up the paint applications if you're not careful. Starting off with the head sculpt, it's on a ball joint at the base of the neck and a double ball peg up underneath the head itself. Looking forward to there, looking up to there, swivel and pivot side to side. His shoulder pads are on elastic straps, you can move them out the way. The arms will go up to there comfortably, going forward and back on ratchets. There's a butterfly joint at the shoulder that hinges up and down. Swivel at the bicep, double bend at the elbow, just make sure you move the armor plating around. And that double bend is on heavy ratchets. For the wrist peg, it's a hinge and swivel. His torso crunches forward to there, going back to there, swivel, and a little bit of pivot side to side. His legs go forward on ratchets to there, just watch out for all this bunching on the leather straps. Going out to there, swivel at the upper thigh. Double bend at the knee on extremely soft ratchets, going just past 90. Then a split cut boot design with a double ball peg for the ankles. Good for forward and back and rotation. Tilt, however, is restricted thanks to the way the end of these boot guards cup the top of his shoes. Moving on to the 3 cool and 3 annoying things. The first annoying thing is I'm just not a fan of putting helmets on top of really nicely painted 1/6 scale head sculpts. It's scary, and if you're not careful, you will do damage to the paint apps on this sculpt. Why didn't they include just a faux head sculpt? He doesn't even have moving eyes, so it's not like there's a benefit of using this head inside of this helmet. Oh, and while I'm complaining, the strap on these goggles should have been made of elastic. The second annoying thing, this may be show accurate, it's been ages since I watched Bad Batch Season 1, you'll have to let me know if it is down in the comments. You can't have the holster and the tools on this thigh pad. You have to choose between them, these empty slots visible with the holster, or the tools. The third annoying thing, fingers crossed it's just on my copy, unless it was of course intentional. These wrinkles, the big one and then the one below it on his ab section, they're solid. They're not actually wrinkles at all. This feels like some kind of piece of plastic being used to simulate wrinkling underneath the fabric shirt. I'm not saying that's what they've done, but I've tried my best to get rid of them. They're not going anywhere. The first cool thing is I like how securely these tools connect up on the inside of these straps on his outfit. You separate the top and bottom, you connect them back up once you've threaded the base of it through, and now, just look at that. This is simple, brilliant, and effective. The second cool thing is die-cast antennas. They knew full well that these would be super fragile if they were made out of plastic. So they went with metal, and now these are so much sturdier because of it. The third cool thing, just a hunch, usually they mention this stuff in the pre-order announcement and on Sideshow, but they didn't for tech. I did a smell test on these straps and they reek of genuine leather, which is a massive win if that's the case. I believe that it's possible because Crosshair had genuine leather bits on his outfit. This wouldn't be the first time they've used real leather on a Bad Batch piece. Wrapping up on Tick. He's good. In fact, he's really good. This is one of my favorite figures in the line so far. I say so far, but the line's done. So my favorite figure in the line is Hunter, then this guy, followed by Crosshair, probably Wrecker, and after that, Echo. Although that's subject to change on any given day, depending on how I feel about the figures and what pose I have them in. This is a brilliant release. If you are after something that's going to look different and you don't have the rest of Clone Force 99, this might do it for you. But if you are collecting the Bad Batch, this is a given. You're automatically going to buy this, and you're going to be rewarded by doing so with a figure that can pull off sick dynamic poses. You don't have to worry about the outfit underneath the armor plating. It's going to look visually interesting, and you've got multiple different display options: head sculpt, goggles, no goggles, helmet, with or without them. Have fun with it, mess around with tech, and find your preferred look for him. The standout feature, in my opinion, is the real leather for the straps. It's a little thing. It's that little 5% of extra care that they've put into this figure that sets him over the top for me. They know that pleather is shit. They've used real leather so that the straps on tech stand the test of time. Now that Bad Batch is done, looking back at the completed line, they did these characters justice. I'm genuinely happy that they decided to make every single one of them. Now, I got my copy of Tech from Pop Collectibles. I've popped a link to their site in the description, along with the discount code Justin's Collection, for 5% off your order if you do decide to buy from them. As always, do your own research, make sure you're comfortable before buying. If you're heading down to the description, why not hit that subscribe, bell notification icon, and join button if you like the sound of seeing your name in the end credits of my reviews. Like, comment, and subscribe. We'll catch you in the next video.